Man, this is man, this has been an awesome week. And I don't know if you saw, I posted on Facebook yesterday. We're coming out of the a fast and prayer that started off the year.
It's awesome.
There's nothing to this date more powerful, short of salvation and Holy Spirit, than a praying wife. My wife's been praying about some stuff, and we have so much to report on that it's so ridiculous. Like, it's only God.
Yeah.
Like, only God could make a way and just make things pan out the way they're panning out right now.
Yeah.
We'll talk more about that.
I saw that you sold that beautiful house. Congratulations, brother.
That's one of the big pieces. And there's another big piece to that also. So there's several big pieces, but we'll bring that all together at a later date. What about you? How was your week?
Yeah, man, it's great. My wife actually came out of a social media fast. On the topic of fasting, for our listeners, best book is there's a book called Atomic Power with God Through Prayer and Fasting.
Okay.
And so that's a good one. Just got back from Costa Mesa, California, John Wayne Airport, flew out of there and had a great business event. Man, it's beautiful flying in. It's beautiful visiting. I don't know about living right now. I know we have some Cali listeners, but I love visiting. I never realized that you're right there in SoCal, and the snow-capped mountains are like right there. So,
it's beautiful.
Man, it was awesome. Got the pleasure of connecting with Dr. Ben Carson.
Very nice.
One of our girls loved the movie Gifted Hands, and was able to tell him that him and his wife are amazing. But we're back now. I know you and I are excited about this. This
topic is so exciting.
It's so exciting. We love infinite banking. We love our children. We've got enough to have sports teams with the amount of kids you and I have, Ty.
Yeah.
And so we're passionate about generational thinking, generational legacy, right? Ty and you and I actually had the conversation of last week of, the buck stops here, right? Maybe we weren't left with an inheritance, right?
I was not left with an inheritance.
I wasn't left with an inheritance, but just because I wasn't, think about what it would have been though if we were left with an inheritance, if we were left with, generational, legacy, generational blessing, where we would have, had that much of a start in life. So we're passionate about this. Just because it wasn't left for us, we can change. We can break those generational chains of lack and poverty and defeat, and we can start now. And that's what people don't realize for this infinite banking. And you don't have to have you can start now. Well, we've done policies as little as $50 a month, bro.
That's it. $50 a month.
And so, I've got some people putting in thousands, some people putting in $50 a month for their children. So anybody can do this, but man, I know you're passionate about this. Let's get started, bro. Come on.
Yeah, this is going to be an amazing podcast. And this strategy is, I've said this before in some of our other groups that we're in, this has got to be my favorite strategy right here. And it's not one that many parents even think about when they look at, because there's lots of parents that save for college, right? Whether it's putting money in a savings account, which is that's way down here on the smartest ways to save for college. Then there's 529. Yep. That's one of the ways you can save for college.
Sort of the major ways.
Another way people are saving for college is through their 401k, but the 401k is not a college savings vehicle, and you're going to get hammered on using that for educational expenses, especially if you're not at retirement age when your child is wanting to go to college. And then in Florida, we have something that's called Florida prepaid as well, which has some huge downfalls with that. But we're kind of going to focus on, we have infinite banking, and then we've got the 529. And what we really want to do today is really unpackage why the infinite banking is superior to the 529, and it literally just comes down to flexibility and math on this.
That's right.
It's
Freedom and
really
math.
it's really not that difficult to grasp, but we're just going to unpackage it. We're going to pull back the curtain on this, and we're going to show you why the 529 is not as good as the infinite banking policy.
That's right. And I want to, address something real quick. If you have a 529, obviously we're in favor of infinite banking, but if you have a 529, kudos to you, because you're doing something where you're thinking of the generational legacy, the generational blessing. You are being disciplined enough and selfless enough to devote some of those hard-earned funds to your children, and that's powerful. That's a start. We just want to help you see the facts, help you understand the math, and say you're already doing this, or maybe you thought about doing this. We want you to be in the know. We want you to be aware of other options. And so let's start with comparing and contrasting first with the 529. And it's called a savings plan. Ty, you and I both know it's really an investment. It's an investing plan.
100%. So with an investment, can you pause right there?
Sure.
With an investment, that means that your account goes up and down, right?
Right.
So you can lose. On the disclaimer, when you sign up for a 529, the disclosures state that you could lose all of your contributions. Is that correct?
That's right. I mean, it's the savings. They want you to think, oh, it's safe and secure. It's truly an investment plan. It
is an investment. All right, continue.
So the first thing that we've got to talk about is the lack of freedom in the 529. And when I say lack of freedom, it's used for credits and then room and board. But other than that, nothing else. There's some cases where it can be used for a computer if it requires it on the paperwork. But think about everything else. When you're sending your child away, the gas, the groceries, the entertainment. I went to college in the mountains. I couldn't use that to go snowboarding, to go skiing, accidents. Insurance, all of these things when you're traveling to and back, equipment, maybe furniture, just the cost of living. And we haven't even gotten on the subject of if they even go to school. See, that's the one thing, we can sit here and have a whole podcast all day on how are we training our kids, not telling them what to think, but how to think. Over half of students in America right now, within 2 to 3 years of spending all that student loan money, they're not even in the same job that they went to get a degree for. They're going to school, and within 1 or 2 years, they're not even in that profession. My daughter, personally, she wants to be a missionary, my 11-year-old. Right now, she's got her heart set on Africa. So that's why we've done policies, for our children is this is going to be, whether they get married, because I got weddings to pay for, or whether they hit 18 and say, here you go, start. Maybe we're entrepreneurs. And so our daughters are walking in our footsteps and they already have business ideas. And so maybe they want to be entrepreneurs. So that's the other thing that you want to think, the lack of freedom. Maybe it's for a wedding, maybe it's for a house, maybe it's for a business. So those are just some of my thoughts there, Ty.
For the 529, you were kind of highlighting that you can only use these for certain things.
Correct.
And typically it's your educational expenses, like your room and board and credits for the tuition. And I think there might is there a you may or may not know this, and this is a question for you. Can you take a penalty and use those funds for something else?
Well, you're going to take a penalty, but why would you take a penalty?
So so think about this. You have 5-10-year-old, and you're gonna put these funds aside for 10, 12, 15 years, however, to get them through college. And you would put your hard-earned dollars into this. And then if you wanted to use the funds for something that wasn't a covered educational expense, like say you needed a desk for the dorm room or something.
Yep.
You can't use what you saved for on that, even though that's literally for your child's
Exactly.
educational purposes. You cannot use it for furniture or clothing or maybe a uniform or a certain attire they might need to wear for a internship of something.
A haircut.
Yeah, to look presentable, to start going to job interviews or something.
Yeah.
So you save for this for 10, 15 years, and then you're told that you can't use it for those. If you want to use it for things that are not covered expenses, then you'll take a penalty. That doesn't make a whole lot of sense to me. That doesn't make a whole lot of sense.
You're handcuffed.
So with the infinite banking policy, which again, if you don't know what an infinite banking policy is, real quick, it's at the core of this, it's a high cash value, dividend paying life insurance policy that's strategically designed to grow in cash value over time. So if you're able to put your educational funds and plan for this like you would a 529, you put your cash funds into the infinite banking policy, the limitations on removing the cash from there are not what the 529 is. There's no rule that says you can't use it for furniture.
That's right.
You can't use it for clothing. You can't use it for a camera to do a podcast. You can't use it for a laptop. You can't use it. What it is you can use it for all of those things. You can actually use it for anything that you want because that's your funds. That's your private funds. The 529 plan does not belong to you. It's not your program. It's the government's program, correct?
That's right.
So by participating in the 529, you have to participate on their rules on what you can use your money for.
Yeah. And real quick, Ty, let's let parents know there's some, 17-year-olds, 18-year-olds, 19-year-olds who aren't, financially responsible. You own the policy. You put it in a child's name, but you still own it, and they they can access the money and you can hand it over to them and sign it over to them, but they, you're still, the one who dictates, what money they can pull out and when they can. So don't think that you're going to, I don't want to just take them all and blow it. No, you are still responsible for okaying, what they're using.
And I guess we should, we're really kind of dove into the, the pros and cons of 529 versus infinite banking. We're going to continue that through this podcast, but I think it's important to understand exactly what you said. The policy is owned by the parent.
Correct.
But this could also be a grandparent.
That's right.
This could be
an uncle,
an aunt.
Yeah.
An uncle.
Yeah.
And what there's different insurance companies are going to have different policies, of course, but generally speaking, what the underwriters are looking for an insurable interest in that person. So, if I become a grandparent, if my kids have children and I become a grandparent, I can open an infinite banking policy on the grandchild.
Correct.
I can do that. So I would be the owner of the policy, meaning all the funds that I put into it, if those would be accessible by me, the owner. Mm-hmm. So not the grandchild or the child for that matter, if it's a parent doing it for the child. So that's kind of the structure of it. So you have the owner of the policy that is in charge of all the cash, that's making those financial decisions. And then at some point later in the future, I can hand the policy over to the insured. And the insured would be like the child or the grandchild or the great-grandchild. At that point, the owner can turn over ownership to the insured. And what the insured just means is any of these policies, there has to be what we call a life attached to the policy. So the insured's life. So that's the child or the grandparent the child, great-grandchild.
Yes.
Yeah. So it's just attached to the life. So it can be the same person. So like I have an insurance policy, the owner and the insured is the same person for me. Mm-hmm. It can be different for these. That's how these are set up because we're talking about minors typically. So that's just kind of the structure of it to kind of unpackage that more.
Yeah.
So let's get back to the pros and cons of the 529 versus the infinite banking strategy?
Well, we already talked about the lack of freedom in 529. If you want freedom, people do this because they think it's making life more, simple. It actually makes it more of a headache to me and complex because you got to worry about so many things. One of the things that people don't think about is the fee structure. And I've heard stories of these getting over 5%. And here's the thing about fees. Even a 1%, if you had a 1.5% fee on a $100,000 account in the S&P 500 from 2000 to 2020, you know what that 1.5% fee would cost someone, Ty?
How much?
$89,000. A little 1.5% fee. So that's 20 years. So if you have a
it's like a whole college education.
Guys, these are getting high. These are getting over 5%. And so that's eating up all the growth. And so that's the other thing you got to think about. Ty, are there any fees in the infinite banking?
No, there's no fees.
No fees. So that's the other thing is
fees in there.
Here's the thing about fees. We can go on a rabbit trail with this, but when you're paying someone and they're actually losing money and that person's still getting a commission, that's just not right. Like how,
because this is an investment. That 529 is an investment, which means that whether your account is growing or losing money, you still pay that 5% fee.
And that person's not even doing anything. They just upload it to the mothership of whatever company it is. And
you're right.
They're not doing anything, but they're collecting a check. So the fee structure is one that another thing you need to be aware of is, do you really want to pay that annual fee?
And it comes down, we said this at the beginning, the strategy is very simple. We're looking at, an infinite banking policy has no fee. And then the 529 has a fee that's attached to it. And whatever that is. And the fee could also probably change, I believe, with your elections for which investment that you want to participate in. The fee could change.
Yeah, they're all different.
And there's different, there's different
every
companies
state's
out
different.
there that'll host this for you.
So the next one is, since speaking of fees and the market volatility, a lot of times these are with the mutual fund company or, they're just guys, just look at the market right now and, think about, there's actual rates of return and then average rates of return. And we hear people saying it's going to bounce back. It's going to bounce back, but you have no idea how far it's going to go down, So the volatility in the market is crazy. And if you're someone who wants solid growth every year and you can guarantee that you don't go down, just think about that. That's what these 529 plans, none of them can guarantee that you're never going to lose money.
I don't know about you, Joe, but I'm not looking to gamble on the kids' educational. So if I'm saying I'm going to put $200 aside or $300 aside per month for one of my daughter's education or my son's education, I'm not looking to gamble that money.
Correct.
And it's a gamble at best. We have no idea. You can't time the market. You can't.
It's even worse than a gamble. Vegas actually has to give you the odds.
Right. I don't even know what the odds are. It's just you stick it in there and you're like, well, over 30 years, they said it'll go back up. It'll bounce back at some point. But if you have the option to just get continued growth, and I know that I will 100%, without a doubt, based on a contractual guarantee by the company that's hosting or managing my infinite banking policy, 100% guaranteed that I will be able to pay for college, when my daughter's 17 or 18 or 19. Why wouldn't I do that instead of gambling?
Yeah.
I could put that $300, $400, $500 a month, thousands of dollars a month into the stock market in a 529 and just hope and pray that the market doesn't continue to go down 20%.
That's right. So
that doesn't make sense. I wouldn't gamble. I guess there's a time and a place for higher risk investments, but not for educational savings purposes.
Not for our children. So let's talk about another one that many people don't think about. You actually get penalized for doing a right thing. And that when you go to FAFSA, I remember like yesterday, I was, going on to FAFSA, filling out your information. There's, an item that you click where it asked you if you have a 529, savings plan. And if you select yes, if you do have a 529, it actually penalizes you for, doing the right thing and putting money aside. Your aid will be limited, so your grants will be limited. So.
Wait, Joe, are you, so parents they're being intentional, which is amazing. That's the first step. You're being intentional and you're planning for the future. There's no immediate gratification by sticking some money in a 529. When they go to fill out the FAFSA, they're actually, because they're going to ask for balances, what's your 529 doing? They're going to get penalized for being intentional.
Correct. Because they're saying, hey, this person's set. They've already got a plan in place. We're going to divert these funds to someone who didn't plan, didn't prepare. This person prepared. This person didn't. Johnny prepared, Susie didn't, we're going to help her. So that's literally, that's how our government thinks on that one.
So you're penalized for doing
the right thing. So, and this is just, And again, this is just, we want to make you guys aware of this, and one of my favorite authors, Andy Andrews, says, if you're doing what everyone else is doing, you're probably doing something wrong. If you want success in life, find out what everyone else is doing and go the opposite direction. So again, this may not be what Dave Ramsey, suggests. And again, we're going to have
this is not what Dave Ramsey suggests.
But this is
only one.
Yeah, I have one. But again, this isn't
probably have a series.
This is a podcast about building wealth, not getting out of debt. There's a difference, but you can get out of debt while building wealth. Just saying. But so those are some of the things. There's other things that we could talk about. One, I just want to say the cost of college in general, inflation's crazy. And the people that think inflation is just 2 to 3%, I would say, really, if you're getting a 2 to 3% raise in your job every year, and the poverty line, even a few years ago, was $70,000, you got to be making over 70 just to, not be broke. But nobody is making a 10% raise every year. We're making a 2 to 3% raise, and yet people are still living paycheck to paycheck. But here's the thing, my point. With inflation rising every year where it's at, there's an article in Forbes that talked about how there's inflation and then college inflation. So it's crazy the amount of money that people are paying. I think you had the statistic, Ty, of what people are paying in a 4-year today. So that's it's amazing.
If parents, if you're listening to this right now and you're thinking, I've got a 5-year-old, I've got a 10-year-old, is it too late? First of all, it's never too late to start being intentional about helping out your kids, whether it's for educational purposes or for just even a general savings for the future to try to build a legacy and wealth for your family. And that's exactly what this does. This is the most powerful one. We'll get into those numbers here in a moment, but just so we understand the cost of college. So a 4-year in-state college is going to run about $102,000 over 4 years. That's for, I'm in Florida, for my kids to go to school in Florida, it's going to be about $102,000 over 4 years. This would be living on campus statistic. If they went out of state, which they're not, they already know they're not going out of state. Over 4 years, that is averaging about $173,000 over the 4 years to go to college. $173,000. If they decided to go to a nonprofit university or private university, that number rises to $218,000. That's the average 4-year to go to college.
Wow.
Those are strong numbers. And again, as you just highlighted, Joe, those numbers, the college inflation is rising at a very, very, very swift rate. I don't even know what those numbers are. But obviously, I graduated from college back in 2006. This is these numbers. That's not what I paid for college.
No, it's not what I paid for at Western State.
I did not pay that for my 4-year degree. That's those numbers are very strong.
Yeah. Yep. So awesome, Ty. So I know you've got some powerful numbers on, we've been helping some clients, and let's look at some real numbers and show people how powerful this can be.
So I mean, if you're still listening at this point, I think you can see that the 529, there's something that we're referring to that is much better. It's a much stronger, a more efficient way to not only plan for education, but to plan for many other things that will most likely, if you have a child, you're raising a child, that are going to come up over the years. So it literally just takes one person in the family to embrace this strategy. That's all it needs to be, one person to embrace this strategy, and it's going to rewrite the financial future for the entire family for life. So in this example, I just have, it's a 8-year-old female. So if you have an 8-year-old, 5-year-old, it really doesn't matter the age. If your child's a week old, you could typically, most insurance companies will write one of these for your child. So as long as they're a week old, you can get one of these. So when you look at this 8-year-old, when this 8-year-old child is between 18 and 22 or so, the years going to college, and inside the infinite banking policy, there will be between $108,000 and $118,000 sitting there ready to use.
Wow.
And you're thinking, oh gosh, well, how much money would I have to put in there for an 8-year-old? That's only like 10, 12 years of saving. Those numbers, the average, because the premium that's funded into this changes over years. So that is an average of about $320 a month.
Wow.
That's it.
Wow. So you're saying for $320 a month, you're going to have for an 8-year-old, she's going to have $118,000 by the time she's at the age of
most likely it'll be toward that top end, between about $108,000 to $118,000 during that time frame to pay for college.
Wow.
And then when you look ahead, okay, when this 8-year-old's 25, because it's not like, just so we're clear, the infinite banking policy doesn't stop. We're talking about education today, but it doesn't stop at college.
That's right.
So where this gets even more powerful is what happens after college. So when this child is now 8, she's a young adult here, there's going to be about $150,000 in cash, somewhere around there. $150,000 of cash. That could be for a wedding.
Yep.
That could be for a second car. That could be for, maybe they need she needs a bigger car at this point because maybe she's starting a family. And she moves from her starter car to a car that's a little bit bigger to accommodate the family that she's starting. That's at age 25. Yeah. That's just a couple practical examples.
Yep.
And what we're doing here, what you really have to grasp is the fact that this 8-year-old over the years is learning that the family doesn't finance cars. Why? Yep. Because we put $330 into an infinite banking policy, and now we can buy the car cash.
That's right.
So now we're the recipients of compounding interest.
That's right.
Instead of giving our hard-earned dollars and interest to the bank, we are our own bank now. So looking ahead, what about 35 years old? The infinite banking policy is now going to have about $300,000 in cash. So this 35-year-old, from 8 to 35, now, is this a first home for the family? Have they been renting for a while? Maybe this is their first home. Maybe they could buy a house cash.
Maybe they can buy a churro and start a business. You and I have a colleague that he's been doing this for 10 years on his son at 8. Started at six or actually 7 or 8. At 17, his son was able to use his infinite banking policy while in high school to buy a car. He's hired his classmates to work for him, clean the car, and now his infinite banking policy has turned into a business, and he's making money with his churro. And the other thing we can't forget is they're insured for life, because God forbid something to happen to a child, they have a diagnosis later on in life where they could never lock in insurance, right? And when
important to
you
talk about that for a moment,
insure a child, which is what the Rockefellers did. There's a book called What Would the Rockefellers Do? I think they changed it to What Would Billionaires Do? But every child, that's how they stayed one of the wealthiest families in the world, is the insurance. They're taking insurance out on every child. But think about that. You're locking in insurance for life. For life. God forbid something happened, a diagnosis, anything.
And what's important is, there's some companies out there that you have to understand how to design these properly. And there's even a feature that can be selected on these, and it's called guaranteed insurability rider.
Yep.
And that might be the most powerful checkbox to say, yep, I'm gonna, and that would be like a little fee that's attached to insurance that's on there. And what it's doing is it's giving you an option. And when I say fee, it's like $3.
It's very small. Yeah. It's not 3%. It's not 3%. It's $3.
We're talking about $3 to have the option. If we're talking about an 8-year-old, they're going to have basically 6 options over key years to increase the insurance, which basically, if you did the maximum for this one carrier that I'm talking about, if you did the maximum, it would be like $50,000 option to increase their insurability. So as that 8-year-old gets all the way to their 40th birthday, that will be the last time that they're going to have the option to increase. They get to that 40th birthday, they can continue over their life to add insurance on themselves. Because I would imagine at 40 years old, they would be the owner. They don't have to be, but they would probably be the owner at that point. They can add insurance to themselves, or the owner can add the insurance. It doesn't really matter. Yeah. But basically, you can almost, in most cases, you're probably going to be doubling the policy.
Yeah.
And the amount of insurance they have. And we'll talk about death benefit more at the end, because of course there's a death benefit that's attached to the infant banking policy, which is a huge legacy and wealth builder for the entire family.
Yes.
I know we talked about like the first home for, this 8-year-old that's now 35, but at 45, it just keeps on getting sweeter. So at 45, this 8-year-old now has $500K in cash.
Wow.
So a 45-year-old has $500K in cash, tax-free, access to $500,000 tax-free. What kind of doors are now open for them? Maybe she's wanting to leave her career. If she's got a career, maybe she's wanting to leave it, or maybe she's wanting to sell a business and wants to make sure that she has more retirement income.
Yeah.
This is literally equivalent to a 401k, an IRA that hasn't been taxed.
Correct.
So
and how long did you
numbers
make
that are like 775K in a 401k or IRA? That's what is equivalent to 500,000 tax free.
Yeah, and we can't show people the illustration right now, but we're not even. And how long are you making these contributions though? Is there a time where you stop it and it still grows, or are you talking about $320 every single month at that age? Break that down for them.
So at the way this happens, it's a decreasing premium. It gets smaller and smaller over time. Correct. And you have the option to pay, and you don't have to pay into this for the max years, but when you do this for a child, and it would make sense. The math makes complete sense that you would want to put more into this, but you just can't, because the IRS says that you've got too much cash accumulation in relation to your death benefit. So you actually, you'll get to the point where you're like, gosh, I wish I could still put, $300 a month in, but you can't.
Yeah.
You're not allowed to. The policy, it would just turn into something that, without getting too deep in a modified endowment contract, and then the whole amount would be taxable, and you don't want that. Yeah. All the growth will be taxable. And
that's something we haven't even talked about yet. This is tax-free growth. We haven't even
tax-free growth, Joe.
We may have to do another podcast on this.
I know. So this 45-year-old that's now a midlife adult has 500,000 tax-free. They can, like I said, if they were working, they can leave. They can do whatever they want. At 65, now we're talking about retirement. We're looking at a 1.1 mil in cash.
Wow.
Or 1.1 million in cash at age 65.
And that's tax-free.
free.
Tax free, because you don't even,
Access
we
to
have
that
no
money.
idea what the tax bracket's going to be.
It doesn't matter.
This
It
8-year-old
won't matter for this 8-year-old.
does not matter. In a 401k, but that
Oh.
million is not a million. Trust me, it's not 1.1
No,
million.
it's called a paper millionaire.
That's right.
So the paper millionaire is not really a millionaire because you don't really own all that money. Every dollar of cash value inside your infinite banking policy you own. That's your money. That's your growth. You own it. And to really put a bow on this, I think it's important for parents. Like if you're wanting to be the parent to make that decision, you have to be willing to make that decision knowing that you're leaving something for the family.
Correct.
So where this 8-year-old, where these numbers are absolutely stunning, is at 90 years old. I mean, if the numbers aren't stunning yet, at 90 years old, there's $2.8 million in cash for this 8-year-old.
Wow, 2.8 million! Come on, guys! Wow.
Wait, how much money did we put into it, Joe?
Oh,
all right. Here's the math. You put in $330. You put in $330 a month, and you have the option. You don't have to. You have the option. You could pay into this for 75 years, essentially. I'm sorry, 67 years on this example. You could fund this policy for 67 years, and you put in 263, and the child would have 2.8 million in their latter years of cash.
You put in how much?
263,000 over 67 years. Again, that's not a requirement. That's just an option.
And you
You
have
have the option to fund this for that long.
Think about the growth on this, guys. You put in $260,000, and
here's another number to look at. So when this 8-year-old's 75, their cash value balance on a year that they're limited by law, they can only put in $1,981 per year. That's a year. How much is that per month, Joe? What is that? What's the math on that real quick? 1981 divided by 12. That's 165. They don't put $165 a month into their infinite banking policy. That's it. That's all they're allowed to put in, or it'll become taxable. So you got $165 going in per month, and that year, their cash value balance goes from 1.7 million or 1,726,000 to 1,789,000. So they put in 2,000 a year, and their infinite banking policy cash value went up by 70,000.
Wow, come on. Who's ready to get started now? It's like,
so that's what I meant a second ago when I said you get to a point where you want to put in more cash, but you can't. Like, why would you not want to put in 2,000 if you're going to get 70?
Yeah.
Yes, sign me up for that.
Ty, that was great, man.
You're saying it's like, imagine going to Chase Bank and you deposit $2,000 into your checking account.
Yeah.
And then they say, oh, you have, at the end of the year, you have 70 available.
Yeah. This was
like,
great.
I'm sorry, there's been a mistake.
Yeah.
You guys made a mistake on my account. You look at your receipt at the ATM, you're like, how did that happen? That's awesome. That's powerful.
That is powerful. Ty, I'm excited, man. Hey, listen, I've listened to a lot of podcasts, and I've got to tell you, this is, and I know this is our podcast. I knew you were going to share these examples. This was powerful. This was really absolutely powerful. And everyone listening, you guys are blessed to hear this, Ty. Man, that's awesome. We're going to wrap it up, for this week. You guys can feel free to reach out to us. Let us know what you guys want to hear more of. If you guys want to get this started, we'd be happy to. But Ty, any last thoughts that you guys want to leave, the people with? But man, I just want to say thank you so much for sharing what you did. That was, even as I'm listening here, I'm like, wow, the conviction for what we help people with. Powerful,
again,
bro.
It's my favorite strategy. Infinite banking it's just absolutely there. You use the word infinite. What can you use it for? Whatever you want, because it's your privately owned money. And I just want to leave everybody with this. Like, if you have to get to the point where you want to not only be the recipient of the benefits of this, since, parents, you would be the owner, grandparents, whoever's listening, aunts, uncles, you would be the owners of these, but you have to be willing to want to give something to your family in the future. And that's what making this decision now at the early age, if you have a child at an early age, you have to be willing to give something to the future.
That's right.
And that's going to like I said in the beginning, it's going to rewrite the whole financial future of the entire family, because, for an 8-year-old, they're going to be looking at $3 to $4 million at the example that we gave in a death benefit. That will change
legacies,
the entire family's future, because you made that one decision. That $330 a month, you can't even get a mid-sized car for that much anymore. If we stopped financing cars and we started being our own bank, this is how you'll become a millionaire.
That's powerful. Hey, blessings to you guys. We'll see you next week on the Wise Wealth Podcast. On behalf of Ty and Joe, blessings.
Peace. See you.